The thing about being called a failure is that after a while it stops hurting. It becomes white noise, background chatter, just another part of family gatherings. At least, that's what I told myself as I walked up to my parents' house for our annual Thanksgiving dinner. I'm Catherine Bennett, though my family calls me Kathy, usually with a slight shake of the head as if my very name is a disappointment. The designer coat I wore cost more than their mortgage, but I'd deliberately chosen something plain, unassuming. No need to tip my hand. Not yet. Look who finally showed up. My sister Diana's voice carried from the front door. The family failure graces us with her presence. I smiled tightly, remembering the stack of papers waiting on my office desk. Diana had no idea how prophetic today would be. How everything was about to change. Inside, the house was full of the usual suspects. Uncle Peter, who ran Bennett Manufacturing with my father. Aunt Margaret, who never missed a chance to compare Diana's success to my supposed failures. My cousins James and Laura, both middle managers at the family company, both convinced they were destined for greatness. Kathy, my mother kissed my cheek. Couldn't you have worn something nicer? It's Thanksgiving, dear. I thought about the 3 luxury boutiques I owned in Manhattan. This was all I had, Mom. Well, she sighed, at least you came. Though Diana tells me you're still doing that little online thing? Selling clothes or something? Before I could respond, Diana swooped in, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Not just clothes, Mom. Kathy resells designer stuff. Like a thrift shop but online. She turned to me with fake concern. How's that going, by the way? Making ends meet. If she only knew that her beloved Bennett Manufacturing had been secretly hemorrhaging money for months, that their suppliers were abandoning them, that bankruptcy was just hours away. If she only knew that my little online thing was actually Eclipse Luxury Group, one of the largest high-end retail conglomerates in the country. But she didn't know. None of them did. I get by, I said quietly, accepting a glass of wine from my father. Getting by isn't the Bennett way, he declared, puffing up with pride. Look at Diana, youngest VP in Bennett Manufacturing history. Look at James and Laura rising through the ranks. That's success. I took a sip of wine to hide my smile. The Bennett way had led their company straight into the ground. While they were busy promoting family members and ignoring market changes, I'd built an empire in silence. Speaking of success, Diana practically bounced with excitement. Wait until you hear our big news. We're expanding. Bennett Manufacturing is opening 3 new facilities next year. Daddy's even talking about taking the company public. I nearly choked on my wine. They were planning an expansion when they could barely make payroll. When their debt was about to come due. That's ambitious, I managed. Of course you wouldn't understand, Uncle Peter chimed in. Business strategy isn't really your thing, is it, Kathy? Not everyone can grasp the complexities of running a real company. The room erupted in knowing laughter. Ah yes, poor Kathy, who couldn't handle the family business. Who walked away from Bennett Manufacturing 5 years ago when they offered her a job in the mailroom. To learn the basics, they'd said. Remember when she suggested we start selling online? James snickered. Said retail was changing or something. Or when she wanted to invest in that luxury goods platform? Laura added. What was it called? Eclipse something. Eclipse Luxury Group, I said softly. That's it. Diana laughed. God, imagine if we'd listened to her. We'd probably be bankrupt. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't need to look at it. I knew what it was, confirmation that Bennett Manufacturing had officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Right on schedule. Dinner's ready, my mother called from the dining room. Everyone find your seats. We filed into the formal dining room where name cards marked our places. Diana sat at my father's right hand, of course. I was between cousin Laura and Aunt Margaret, as far from the head of the table as possible. So, Kathy, Aunt Margaret began as we passed the turkey, have you considered getting a real job? I hear Walmart is hiring. More laughter. I cut into my turkey, remembering the day 5 years ago when they tried to demote me to the mailroom. I'd been working in acquisitions, had just completed my MBA, had brought them solid proposals for modernizing the company. But Uncle Peter had convinced my father I wasn't ready for real responsibility. The mailroom will be good for you, he'd said. Teach you humility. Instead, I'd walked away. Sold my shares back to the family for a fraction of their worth. Shares that would be worthless by morning. I took that money and invested in a small but promising luxury retail platform called Eclipse. Now Eclipse Luxury Group owned 30 high-end boutiques, 6 online retail platforms, and was about to acquire its first manufacturing company. Actually, I set down my fork. I've been meaning to talk to you all about business. Oh honey, my mother sighed, not this again. Yes, look how well your business advice worked out last time, Diana smirked. Didn't that Eclipse company you loved so much get bought out or something? It did, I nodded. By Morgan Holdings. See. Diana turned to our father. Thank God we didn't listen to her investment advice. My phone buzzed again. This time I took it out, making a show of checking the message. Everything okay? My father asked, annoyance clear in his voice. Some crisis at your little resale shop? No, I said calmly. Just confirming that Bennett Manufacturing's bankruptcy filing has been accepted by the court. The room went completely silent. Diana's fork clattered onto her plate. What did you just say? My father's voice was dangerously quiet. I took another bite of turkey, chewing slowly before responding. Your bankruptcy filing. It was just approved. Chapter 11. Though given your debt load, it'll probably convert to Chapter 7 pretty quickly. That's impossible, Uncle Peter stammered. How would you even know? Oh, I smiled. I forgot to mention. Morgan Holdings, the company that bought Eclipse. I paused, savoring the moment. That's my holding company. I own it. Just like I own all of Bennett Manufacturing's debt. The silence that followed my announcement was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in that dining room, where just moments ago they'd all been laughing at my expense. My father's face had gone chalk white. Diana's mouth hung open, her perfectly applied lipstick suddenly looking garish against her pale skin. You're lying, Uncle Peter finally sputtered. This is some sort of sick joke. I reached into my bag, the cheap bag they'd been sneering at all evening, and pulled out a folder. Actually, I have the paperwork right here. Would you like to see it? The bankruptcy filing, the debt acquisition records, everything. I spread the documents on the table right next to the cranberry sauce. I particularly enjoy this page, the list of creditors. Morgan Holdings owns 82% of your outstanding debt. But that's impossible, Diana whispered. You run a small online resale shop. I couldn't help but laugh. Is that what you really think I've been doing for the past 5 years? While you were all busy mocking my little online thing, I built Eclipse Luxury Group into a $3.2 billion company. Morgan Holdings, my private investment firm, is worth even more. $3.2 billion? Laura choked on her wine. Give or take a few million, I shrugged. It's been a good quarter. My father found his voice, though it shook with barely controlled rage. If what you're saying is true, if you really own our debt, why would you do this to your own family? Pie family. I set down my wine glass carefully. You mean the family that tried to demote me to the mailroom after I finished my MBA? The family that laughed at every suggestion I made to modernize the company? The family that calls me a failure at every holiday? Just then my phone buzzed again. Right on schedule. Excuse me, I said, standing up. I need to take this. It's probably my assistant with the final paperwork. I walked into the hallway, leaving them to stew in their shock. Through the dining room door I could hear their panicked whispers. She has to be bluffing. Check the company accounts. Call our lawyers. I smiled as I answered my phone. Yes, Jennifer? Everything's ready, Ms. Bennett. The bankruptcy filing has been processed, and our offer for asset acquisition is prepared. Should I send in the team? Give it 5 minutes, I replied. Let them digest the news first. When I returned to the dining room, they were huddled around Uncle Peter's phone, frantically checking account balances and legal notices. Well, I said pleasantly, shall we discuss the next steps? My team will be here shortly with the acquisition proposals. Team? My mother's voice was faint. What team? As if on cue, the doorbell rang. I checked my watch. Right on time. That would be my lawyers and financial advisors, I said. I hope you don't mind if they join us for dessert? We have quite a bit to discuss. Now wait just a minute. My father stood up, trying to reclaim some authority. You can't just come in here and... Actually, I cut him off. Your company is bankrupt. You've defaulted on $142 million in loans that I now own. You have exactly two choices. Work with me on an orderly restructuring and sale, or I force liquidation first thing Monday morning. Diana started crying, her mascara running. But the expansion plans, the new facilities, were never going to happen, I finished for her. The company has been insolvent for months. Did none of you actually read the financial reports? Or were you too busy promoting family members and planning parties to notice you were hemorrhaging money? Jennifer led my team into the dining room, 3 lawyers and 2 financial advisors, all carrying briefcases full of documents. The contrast between their professional demeanor and my family's shell-shocked expressions was almost comical. Ms. Bennett, one of the lawyers nodded to me. Shall we begin? Please. I gestured to the dessert plates my mother had laid out. Help yourself to some pumpkin pie while we work. My mother's recipe is quite good. For the next 2 hours, we went through the details of Bennett Manufacturing's collapse and my proposed acquisition. I'd spent months planning this, buying up their debt through various subsidiaries, watching as they dug themselves deeper into trouble. This is thorough, Uncle Peter admitted grudgingly, looking through the paperwork. Unlike some people, I smiled, I actually understand business strategy. By the time we finished, my family's empire had crumbled to dust, and mine had grown even larger. I'd given them terms that were fair, more than fair really, but that left no doubt about who was in charge now. One last thing, I said as my team packed up. Diana, James, Laura, clean out your offices by Monday. Your positions are being eliminated in the restructuring. You're firing us? Diana shrieked. Your own family? No, I'm firing underqualified executives who got their jobs through nepotism. But if it makes you feel better, I hear Walmart is hiring. I stood up, smoothing my cheap dress. Thank you for dinner, Mom. The turkey was excellent, though I'm afraid none of us got to finish it. Too much business to discuss. Kathy, my father's voice stopped me at the door. Was this all just about revenge? I turned back to look at him, at all of them. No, Dad. This was about business. The revenge is just a bonus. Walking out to my car, I heard Diana wailing about her mortgage, her country club membership, all the things she'd lose. James was yelling about lawyers, about fighting back. But they had nothing left to fight with. I got into my car. Not the modest sedan they thought I drove, but a Mercedes S-Class I'd had delivered for this specific moment. As I pulled away, I saw them all standing at the window watching me leave. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Jennifer. Congratulations, Ms. Bennett. The acquisition announcement is ready for Monday morning. I smiled, thinking about how different next Thanksgiving would be. Would they still call me the family failure when I owned their company? Would they still mock my little online thing when they were all unemployed? Somehow I didn't think so. 1 week later, Bennett Manufacturing's name was changed to Eclipse Manufacturing, becoming the newest subsidiary of my growing empire. I kept the company's original logo, designed by my grandfather, but added one small detail, a tiny eclipse symbol, a permanent reminder of how the family failure had eclipsed them all. Diana eventually found work at a department store. Not Walmart, but close enough. James and Laura had to leave the state to find jobs, their resumes tainted by Bennett Manufacturing's collapse. Uncle Peter retired in shame. My father tried to reach out once, about a month after the acquisition. He left a voicemail that started with, "I was wrong about you," and ended with a request for a job. I had my assistant send him the same form letter we send all unsuccessful applicants. The following Thanksgiving, I didn't attend the family dinner. I was too busy running my companies, all of them, including the one that used to be their pride and joy. Instead, I sent them each a card with the Eclipse Manufacturing logo and a short note. Thankful for all the lessons you taught me about real business. Hope you're enjoying your real jobs. Sometimes success is the best revenge. Sometimes the family failure becomes the family's worst nightmare. And sometimes karma comes with a side of pumpkin pie.